I let my baby cry it out. Oh, my baby doesn't sleep until I rock him. My baby gets up multiple times in the night to feed. I'm exhausted. Making babies sleep is one of the hardest parts of being a parent, but it needn't be. With the right steps of sleep training, you can get your baby sleeping and say bye bye to those dark circles. The latest episode of the Big Talk About Tiny Humans with Devi Shobha and Meghna features Ajita Gopal Sitapalli, a sleep consultant who has formulated the Sleep Right program to guide their children. She answers our most pressing questions on baby sleep, from the right age for sleep training to good sleep habits we can inculcate in our kids from the beginning. Join us for the latest episode of the Big Talk About Tiny Humans.
Almost every job in the world requires training, except parenting.
You need to learn parenting on the job, and that can be really hard.
Here on Big Talk About Tiny Humans, we want to help you navigate the world of parenting better and make your lives a little bit easier.
Hi everyone, I'm Meghna.
And hi, I'm Devi Shobha.
Every week, we bring you the best research on parenting,
Top tips from experts,
and actionable strategies to confront the numerous challenges that all parents and educators face.
So let's get started, shall we?
Newborns don't yet have a sense of day and night. They sleep around the clock, and because their tiny stomachs don't hold enough breast milk or formula to keep them satisfied for long, they wake often to eat, no matter what time of day or night it is. This, of course, leads to sleepless nights for the new parents, affecting the entire family's well-being. Poor baby sleep is also associated with depression and poor health in mothers. So, how do we ensure our babies sleep well and sleep right? In today's episode of the Big Talk About Tiny Humans with Devi Shobha and Meghna, we welcome Ajita Gopal Sitapalli, a child sleep consultant and a women's mental health coach. Just like any new mom, she experienced sleep deprivation with her firstborn. But unlike most parents, she refused to accept sleepless nights as a side effect of raising her child. Over 9 months that were replete with trial and error and research, she managed to successfully erase her dark circles and find a permanent solution to her son's irregular sleeping pattern. Ajita formulated the Sleep Right program, which she now uses to guide parents into sleep training their children to achieve the bliss of a good night's sleep. Welcome, Ajita. Thanks so much for accepting our invite.
Hi, Meghna. Thank you very much for having me. And thank you for that lovely description and introduction.
So, Ajita, we want to start is this word sleep training, especially since there are so many connotations and meanings associated with it. What exactly do you mean when you say sleep training? And at what age can we start sleep training our babies?
Okay, the word sleep training, I think, has gotten a lot of bad reputation, right, over the last many years. And it's probably one of the most controversial ones when it comes to babies. But very simply thought of, sleep training is really nothing more than just teaching our babies to develop healthy sleep habits. Just like we teach them to develop healthy food habits or good manners, or pretty much anything that we go along the way teaching our children as they grow up. Sleep is one of those basic foundations that we want to develop in a healthy format for our children. Sleep training, if you essentially look at that term, whether it's called sleep training or nowadays some people choose to say sleep teaching or coaching, whatever the term you might use. So sleep training, you might call it sleep coaching, you might call it sleep teaching, or whatever term you might use for it. It essentially just means one thing. It means helping your child to learn to sleep more independently without the help of external crutches or associations, so that they can sleep the longest duration of time without unnecessary interruptions. That is really what we try to achieve in any sleep training process.
Okay. And what are these external crutches that we should not be relying on?
You want to think of external crutches as anything that is not in the control of the child. So, for example, if a child needs to be held for an extended period of time just to fall asleep, or needs to be rocked, or needs to be latched on, or on a bottle, these are all things that are in the control of the adult. So you can just imagine the child always needs you to be present and offering those associations or those crutches so that they can fall asleep. Whereas on the other hand, if the child was just maybe sucking their thumb or playing with their hair, these are associations that are in the control of the child. So they're not considered to be, in that sense, external. They are things that the child can actually manage by themselves. And those are actually good associations to have. So the external ones are really what the child cannot control or do by themselves.
That's such an interesting perspective, Ajita, and it actually throws the kind of commonsensical knowledge that we had on its head. Thumb sucking is okay because it's under the child's control, rocking is not. More on this when we come back after a break. Welcome back. We are discussing sleep training, and we have a very interesting perspective by our guest, Ajita. Ajita, at what age can we start sleep training?
Sleep training, as we think about it as where we try to eliminate sleep crutches and inculcate good sleep habits, this combination of elimination and inculcating good sleep habits, we start only after 5 months of age. But actually, inculcating sleep habits can start from the day you bring your baby home. You don't have to actually wait for 5 months. You can actually, set up that floor work or that groundwork for it right from the get-go. And that oftentimes what that does is it actually eliminates the need for that hardcore training that we land up doing after 5 months. Because if your child's on the right path with doing all the right things right from the day you've come home, then the chances are higher your child doesn't really need to be pushed and prodded into, that mold of sleep training at all. Your child might just naturally gravitate into good sleeping habits. So we don't have to always correct a bad habit. We can inculcate it from day one itself.
Okay. And what are these good sleep habits that we can inculcate right from day one, Ajita?
Good sleep habits right from day one would be things like making sure our child is not overtired before going to sleep. So the concept of crashing into sleep, which even a lot of us adults tend to do these days, where we're so exhausted and we just crash into sleep, right? We definitely don't want our babies to be doing that. So that's one really good habit we can start right from the get-go. The other good habits are the same stuff that I mentioned to you earlier. We don't want our babies to be relying on external help to fall asleep. We want to meet all their needs. We want to take care of all their requirements, but we don't want them to use those as crutches to fall asleep. There is a big difference between meeting needs and letting those needs become crutches, right? So from day one, if we can actually meet the needs of our child and differentiate that from the crutches, we've done ourselves and our babies a big service.
That's quite interesting. I'm curious because a lot of babies fall asleep while being on the breast, right? The mother's breast. So is that an external crutch? Because that's also a need of the baby. So how would you classify that?
So the need of the baby is to latch on and to feed or to use it to calm down. If the baby is very overtired, the baby might use nursing as a way of just the sucking reflex helps the baby to calm down, right? So those are the objectives being met by nursing, but its primary objective, of course, is to use to nourish and to feed a child. Now, you still continue to use that to nourish and feed a child, but if you every day, multiple times a day for naps and night, if you keep using that as a method to put a child to sleep, that whether you're hungry or not, let me latch you on so you can suckle your way to sleep, then you are effectively teaching your child that to fall asleep, you need to suckle. So you're creating a pathway for your child. And remember, our children, they're born not knowing what to do and what not to do. We are consciously and unconsciously teaching them, and they are just absorbing every minute of the day. So the question is, what are we putting out there for them to absorb and learn? If we are slightly more conscious, we will realize that if I don't want my child to develop something as a habit, it's very important that I don't set the stage for my child to actually have that habit, right? So I don't give my child all the equipment to develop that as a habit.
I think that
sense?
helps. Absolutely, absolutely. So both my kids would feed themselves to sleep. But
Right.
yeah, I remember that was never, it was need based. It was never an indiscriminately, shoving the breast in
Correct.
their mouth. So I
Correct.
guess, I think some bit of being cued in to
Yeah.
your baby, to your child is definitely important.
Yeah. So, hi, Ajita, Shobha here.
Hi,
I just,
Shweta.
yeah, thank you for coming here and thank you for honoring my request. And thank you for being with us today. It's been such a pleasure listening to you. I've been listening in and I just had a very, it just piqued my curiosity in the sense that it's kind of paradoxical in the sense that you say that we need to be cued into the baby's cycles and parents are kind of struggling with finding the right balance, and then the baby is also kind of in between. What kind of practices do you think that we could have carried on from our previous generations, and what do you think we have discontinued, and if we have, what do you think we should repurpose or reintegrate into our practices?
Firstly, Devi Shobha, thank you so much for having me. It's always fun to talk about baby sleep and sleep in general. But coming to your question, right? You're asking me about what are some of the practices we did in the previous generations that maybe we want to carry forward today. Is that
Yeah, that I'm asking because in the olden days, I remember a lot of rocking and, rocking on the swing or even on the lap. But, even then, there was a lot of being cued into the baby. There was less of fussing around the baby, compared to today, right? So, what do you think we could have brought on in the current generation, which we have not?
Okay, now I don't know how much of, how many things we can actually bring back into this generation because times are different. We live differently. Entire lifestyle has changed so much. So I'm not sure how much we can bring in. But for the sake of discussion, I think in the previous generations, the support system we had in every family was far stronger, far larger, right? It was a very rare scenario to have mother raising a child almost independently, right? It was joint families, big families, many people to one baby. So a lot of the practices were much easier to maintain and uphold in that scenario. Similarly, in the past generations, we would actually have many more children in that family of varying ages, not necessarily the same age. So little children always mimicked older children, and life moved on. And also the same parent didn't land up focusing on one child for that long. Versus today, where we have one parent to maybe one child, and the focus is very, very centrally there, over that child. We watch every little thing, and every inch of ourselves is available for the child. So we probably, in some ways, even overdo some of the things just trying to buy some peace. I don't know if we can recreate the support system or those practices from the past. I think we've moved maybe too far ahead, in today's generation. But that's one of my thoughts. The other thing is, I think the previous generations, as by default, kind of valued sleep a lot more than we do in today's generation, as adults, especially, right? So our lifestyles have kind of squeezed us dry to a great extent. We do too many things, and each one of us is
That's true.
Isn't that right?
That's so true.
We're spread out very thin. We're managing families, we're managing careers, we have social connects, we have hobbies, we have
social media.
Social media, absolutely. So we have so much going on, and we are juggling so many things. And mind you, we very quickly pass on that attitude of life even on to children. You see toddlers doing like 100 different things today, and I don't think any generation in the past did that. Toddlers just played in the mud, and but nowadays toddlers have got a timetable from the time they're up till they've gone down for the night.
That's true.
Isn't that right? And then it's not enough. It's still not enough. We're always catching up. So I think that's another thing in the past, right? The mother or the woman who became a mother would rest so much more. Her focus in life was to raise the child. Her focus was to whether she fed 4 times in the night and woke up 4 times. She had plenty of people to hand over the baby to. So she rested in the day. She took her naps in the day. So she also was encouraged to take care of herself so that she could again give to the child. Whereas today it's a depleting well because the mother gives birth to the child. She raises the child. She feeds the child. She still manages her career. She doesn't have that downtime. And then she's up in the night. And so we've got a potentially hazardous situation here for both mother and for child, because now the child's going to grow up with a mother who is kind of stretched so thin and doesn't, cannot possibly have the best optimal self out there for the child. So we've caught ourselves in a very vicious cycle. So I'm not answering your question directly or probably very well, Devi Shobha, but I think I don't know if we can bring anything from the past, but I think we can look at the past generations, appreciate and maybe alter it to fit our generation maybe in some way so that we can benefit. At least we should understand and appreciate where we are right now so that we can move forward in a more healthier way.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up, Ajita. In fact, Meghna and I just recorded a session on postpartum depression just the last week. And these were the exact things that we discussed, where the new mom, right? There was this culture of the new mom feeling like she deserved all the attention and all the rest and all the care in the world just because she's done something amazing with her body, right? But currently that's kind of depleting, not because of somebody else telling us to do things differently, but because lifestyle has changed, right? There is no more that kind of downtime. You cannot take 6 months off. Even though company policies mandate it, there's something to do all the time because you're just not, the culture has seeped with so much of this productivity story that we tell ourselves.
The slowness of life has totally been replaced by the busyness of life. Right?
Absolutely. So it's so relevant that you brought it up. And the sleep training, I think the home environment itself makes a very deep impact and is a huge factor in the success of it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. I would agree with you completely on that. The home environment is a make or break for sleep training. If I could go one step ahead and actually share with you time and again, I will have mothers who come for sleep training, who come to sleep train oftentimes very much later. Maybe their child was 2+ years old by the time they come. So they've already had a deficit of over 2 years of no sleep, and they have kind of tried multiple things, and obviously it has not worked. By the time they come to me, they are drained out. But the problem in that situation is we have a person who is extremely exhausted, who has absolutely no energy to do anything, who now needs to do this very focused effort of sleep training, because sleep training is not something you just kind of do in the background, right? It is a very focused, it's like going to an exercise program, right? You don't go to a gym, to a hardcore exercise program if you're not in a good place physically. You first build your energy and then you go, right? And this is something that comes to my desk very often, where I have a mother who is going through anxiety or depression and is coming in that very frustrated or unhappy space to get rid of this sleep issue, not out of this focused energy, but more out of this, I can't do it anymore because it's got the best out of me. Now I can't deal with this anymore, right? And then it becomes very important to actually take care of mother first before we can take care of sleep. Because
so well said.
I always say the mother is the root of the tree. If the
Yes.
root is unhealthy, you cannot focus on the leaves and the flowers or the fruits. You just cannot, you have to focus on making the root healthy. Everything else will flourish from there on.
I
Because the
love
root
that,
will take
Ajita.
care
I
of
love
everything.
that because that's exactly what I do in my parent consultations. This morning, I had a lady who came to me because, her 4-year-old is a strong willed child and she's obviously facing quite a challenge.
Mhm.
And when I asked her, what are you doing for yourself? How are you filling your own cup? She drew a blank. So my consultation then focused on not her child and the behaviors and the limits and the consequences, but actually on her.
Sure, absolutely. Because she's forgotten she has a cup. You see, she's just
Yeah.
forgotten, never mind filling it. She's thrown away that cup,
Yeah.
which is why she's feeling so lost.
Yeah.
She's only holding on to the child's cup now.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't work because that's his cup, he's going to take care of that. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Very
Absolutely.
well said. Very well said. Yeah.
So, Ajita, let's just come down to it then. What would be some of the basic steps to follow in sleep training the child? Like, are there like some basic steps that work for everyone? I'm sure it would be also dependent on the context in many cases, but what would be some of the fundamental steps to be followed by all parents?
Sure. Okay. That's actually a very good question because this is something all parents can kind of put as part of their focus agenda to get better sleep from their children and to kind of inculcate in their own lives as well. So for sleep, as an activity, we need to be calm, right? If you ever think of a day that you went to bed all stressed out because you had a bad phone conversation, you had a lot of stresses at work, or you had an argument with your husband before you went to bed, you don't land up falling asleep that easily. Okay. You're kind of tossing and turning and, just not in your good element, right? So sleep requires us to kind of feel calm, feel good. Feel sort of at peace, right? Only then our brain decides to disconnect and sort of drift off into sleep. That's also, without going into too much detail, that's also a kind of a protective measure of the brain because the brain's making sure you're safe before you can drift off into sleep where you don't know what the dangers around you are. So anyway, so you need to now recreate that for your child, a calm space. For you to recreate that for your child, you need to kind of feel that space yourself, right? So when you come into the bedroom to put a child to sleep, I think taking a few deep breaths and enjoying that moment where you're perhaps reading a book or even changing a diaper, singing a song. It doesn't matter what your set of routines might be for that last 10 minutes, but having something that makes your child and you feel sort of joyful, relaxed, just kind of love. You want that bonding sort of feeling there. You're not trying to get giggles out of a child. You're not trying to make them laugh. You're not trying to make them stimulated. But you're trying to relax them. You're trying to keep them calm. You're trying to keep joy there so that the child feels safe and calm enough to drift off into sleep. And that is what we commonly call the bedtime prep or the bedtime routine. So it is a set of steps that if you do it in the same order every time, the child comes to know it, comes to, expect it, and becomes like a predictable, comforting safety net for the child before they can fall asleep. That is one very important thing that all parents can follow for their children.
So basically a sleep routine is what you're trying to say, but done in a manner which is obviously calm and relaxed.
The manner matters a lot. I know oftentimes parents will tell me that I have a routine from the day my child is born. It has never worked. My child is now 3 years old. But if it has never worked and my child is fighting it, or my child hates being read to or hates the song I'm singing, then there's no point doing
Why will I do it? Yeah.
Right. But we get so caught up in the stuff that we read, especially on social media, that says, keep it consistent. So you just feel like you're married to that routine now. I've done it for 3 months. I can't change it because already I have so many things going wrong with my sleep. I don't want to tempt fate and change my routine. And so a lot of parents just keep that going and keep that going, and child just hates it more and more and more. And because the child hates it and doesn't cooperate, now the parent hates it as well. So now there are two people who hate the routine,
but they're still doing it.
Which obviously doesn't result to something beautiful in the end. So that's one thing. The other one, which is really important, is to keep awake windows to be age appropriate. Now, unlike us adults, where most of us just sleep once at night, very rarely do people nap anymore as adults. But our babies require naps. So depending on their age, they might need one nap, or they might need as much as, 4 naps if they're 5 months old. So the point is knowing how much the child needs. How much do they need in terms of duration of naps and frequency in naps? This is important for us to know. And how much do they need in terms of night sleep? So knowing the duration of sleep and how these should be paced between sleeps. How long should my child stay awake? Because one of the biggest problems we have with young children is parents trying to keep their children awake too long in the hope that my exhausted child will sleep longer or better or without too much fuss. And this absolutely never happens. And so you now have the worst scenario where you've now stretched your child out. So you have an overtired child, and now you're rocking that child for much longer because it's harder for overtired children to fall asleep. And so now you've invested too much energy just to have that child wake up in 1 hour asking for another rocking session. And so it is you'll end up feeling like you failed on multiple, fronts, which, by the way, then is the worst thing for a mother to feel, like she's failing her effort, right? She's failing in everything she's doing in terms of sleep. And that lands up making her more stressed, more anxious. And that cycle continues, where in the day, right from the time she's woken up, all she's thinking about is, where did I go wrong? Where did I go wrong? Where did I go wrong? And she wants to correct that before the next nap comes in. And it's back to the same grind. And so she loses out on enjoying that time that the child is awake because she's tired and she's stressed. And the child loses out on having the happy, calm mother in his or her awake time to play with them. And the same anxious mother comes then to put them to sleep. So you can see how just these little things where we go wrong, just if you can keep the right awake window, not have an overtired child, it keeps us calm, them calm. We have a calm bedtime routine. We've actually set up a nice little space to then let a child go to sleep. And then, of course, like I said earlier, the lesser the dependencies the child has on us to fall asleep, the better for both the child and the parent. Because the lesser the dependency, the better the quality of sleep of the child.
That's very interesting, Ajita. Thank you. Actually, in my practice also, I see a lot of mothers who fall into this, this cycle. And it's a downward negative spiral, right? Because, one cranky episode fuels the next and so on. Absolutely. Yeah, so I think that your tips are extremely helpful.
So Ajita, thanks for all those tips that you just enumerated. And I think, like we discussed, it has a lot to do with, setting up the environment, self-care for the mom and for the parents and, all of those things. Have you seen any long-term studies, longitudinal studies that go past those years of active sleep training that we do with the kids? Have you seen it show benefits even during the later years, maybe, young adulthood or even as adults? Have you seen any kind of studies that support that this is truly beneficial even after the active training years?
I'm not sure if there are studies done from childhood all the way following the same person all the way to adulthood.
Okay.
But then there are definitely plenty of studies done that take you up to the early childhood years, so where a bunch of children were sleep trained very young at maybe 7 months or so. And then those children are followed for years on end till they are young children at 5-6 years or so of age, at least. And those studies have definitely shown huge, positive signs of that sleep training, because it's very simple, right? If we think of it in a very simplistic way, for us, if we sleep, we are better in the day. The day we don't sleep, we are not better. But this works actually far more stronger for our children, because they're in their foundation years. They have so much more to learn, so much more to absorb, so much more to grow, just physically. Their brain itself is growing on so many neurons on a daily basis. So they have a lot more need of the sleep, because sleep is one of those very important elements, or it's like that battery recharge, right? Where everything kind of comes together and everything gets its energy to perform itself. The hormones are getting released and the growth is happening, and memory is getting consolidated. So these are not small things that we can kind of say it's negligible in childhood years. Let's, push it away. Definitely not. Those are very important things for a growing child to actually have, which is one of the reasons when you see newborn infants, they sleep so much. So many parents will complain, not knowing what's in store for them later. My child is sleeping too much, when they're newborn. My child's not waking up to play, because there's this concept that children are going to play from the day they are born, right? And
I can totally imagine toddlers or older siblings complaining, but I can't visualize parents.
Imagine parents complaining.
Actually, it is not uncommon, because it comes from concern, why is my child not interested in the people that come to see my child, not interested in looking at me, just wants to sleep, just crying to sleep all the time. And the reason is that is the need for the child's body and brain to sleep, because that is how all the functions happen, right?
Correct.
So we need to appreciate that. Now, we do have studies done with a lot of us adults, which show that the poor sleep over the years has been the cause of, or a big factor in contributing to illnesses like Alzheimer's and dementia and stuff like that. And there's a lot of research, even with children, about how sleep, good sleep patterns promote optimal health in infancy. So we have had studies done where we have seen the link between sleep and obesity in children. Because poor sleep seems to lead to poor eating habits, not just in children, even in adults.
Adults as well, yeah.
Yes, but these, there's actual studies done even on children, which have panned out several years where they have done that. And there was one study in particular, I can't remember who did the study, but there was one study in particular that kind of looked at the sleep and obesity association across years, and basically did suggest that this childhood sleep could be a predictive factor for health outcomes in adulthood, and for future health outcomes. But we must understand, sleep as a topic, even for adults, has just recently started to get its due respect.
Yeah.
We did not think of sleep with that much value, at least from a science point, right? We always thought you didn't sleep well because you had a problem. We didn't realize that you not sleeping well is causing your problem. You see, and that understanding has only started to come now. And we see that with children as well. Meghna probably sees that a lot more, where you see the children who don't sleep well come with more behavioral complaints.
Absolutely.
Yeah?
No doubt about that.
Absolutely. Because sleep is something that in sleep where emotional regulation is happening, right? And so if you're not sleeping well, you're not going to have that help that comes with in that emotional regulation. So you're going to have behavioral issues. But guess what? That happens to us as adults too. Mothers, when they don't sleep well, have a higher risk of PPD than mothers who sleep better. So we can see that sleep affects all of us at all ages. There are plenty of research that is done, and I do believe a lot more will be done in the years coming, because it is now we have actually recognized that this is our master button. If we can get a good understanding and a good appreciation for our sleep and be kind to our bodies, and sleep, it's not a lazy activity. It is an activity of sheer importance. I tell some of my parents, when they don't take care of their own sleep, I tell them that think of your phone, right? Nowadays, we are all so possessive about our own phones. I said, think of your phone. Can you go not charging it? Just don't plug it in to charge it. Just leave it. Just don't charge it. Just keep using it as at will, but don't charge it. Is that an option? Or don't charge it perfectly. Just charge it for 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there. You're not going to get the best out of your phone. Your phone's going to say...
It seems to me that we are charging our phones more than we are charging ourselves.
Oh, much more, much more. Because we are leaving ourselves on that red line, of the battery. We once we cross that red line, we're like, okay, it's all right, let's move on. We don't realize that optimum charge means optimum benefit. The lesser you charge, the lesser you benefit. And that applies to all of us and our children too.
That's brilliant. Thanks so much, Ajita. I'm really curious. I'm just going to squeeze in one last little question. I finally remembered what I was going to ask. So for the longest time, I have done this. I know many parents who do this. I just want to sound this off you. Is this okay to do? So of course, as babies, we would, in putting my baby down for a nap or, for sleeping for the night, I would lie down next to them to soothe them, to comfort them, to read to them, to sing to them. And then I would, end up falling asleep myself. And this pattern continued for the longest time. In fact, only just about now, my kids who are now 7 and 5 have actually started sleeping by themselves independently together in their own room, which is really a blessing. But for the longest time, this is, so I know a lot of parents who, in putting their babies for a nap, their kids down to sleep at night, do lie down with them to put them to bed. Is this okay or is this not okay?
It's perfectly okay if it works for both parent and child.
Okay.
But if as a parent, if you wake up 1 hour later and feel really crappy about it, or if you plan to kind of sneak out into your own bedroom after some time, and then your children wake up 3 hours later and get really upset that you left them, and this is a saga daily, then obviously something needs to change, because somebody's sleep is getting disturbed by this equation, or somebody is not happy by this equation a few hours into the night. But if everybody is happy,
everybody's happy.
Then
I
what's
usually
the problem?
No, okay. So I usually then wake up a couple of hours later feeling completely refreshed. It's like a nap for me. And then I get in 2 hours more of work and then I go to bed. So,
if it works,
actually a win-win.
Absolutely. If it works for everybody, then there's nothing wrong with it. What you want is to have less fragmented sleep for both yourself and for your children. And if what you're doing does not cause those fragments and is letting everybody sleep easily and everybody is happy with that setup, then why change something that is working?
Brilliant.
There is no reason to change it.
Thank you so much, Ajita. All that you spoke is super helpful. And I hope to parents listening to this, the central message that I took away from this is being kind to ourselves, our bodies, because our sleep, we're almost paving the pathway for our kids' sleep. So us being calm, us giving our bodies rest, us charging ourselves will go a long way in ensuring our babies and our children are sleeping well. Thank you so much, Ajita. This has been such an informative and enlightening discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Meghna. You summed it up beautifully. So I think the message is loud and clear that we all need to give sleep a lot more importance than we do currently. And I think everything starts with us. We set great examples for our children when we take care of ourselves. So let's prioritize ourselves and our sleep and our children's sleep. Thank you, Devi Shobha. It was lovely talking to you and Meghna. It was a lovely chat today.
Yeah, absolutely. It was our pleasure. Thank you very much, Ajita.
Thank you.
So that's our episode for today. Thank you for listening to Big Talk About Tiny Humans, our podcast for parents and educators.
Hope you enjoyed it and don't forget to share it with your friends and family.
Listen and subscribe to Big Talk About Tiny Humans on the IVM Podcasts app, website, and all major audio platforms. We are available everywhere.
You can follow us on social media and online. Meghna is at The Therapist Mommy on Instagram and YouTube. And check out her website, raisingfamilyacademy.com, for a transformative course on raising a child with emotional intelligence.
And Devi Shobha is at KidsKintha on Twitter and Instagram. And check out kidskintha.com for in-depth articles and events on parenting and child development.
While you're at it, do also check out other great shows from the IVM Podcasts Network at shows.ivmpodcasts.com. And IVM is on social media at IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
We'll catch you again on our next episode.